All right, ladies and gentlemen, my next guest is a former UFC heavyweight champion, a Metamoris champion, a Pancrase champion, and really a man who put catch wrestling on the map in North America, the Warmaster, Josh Barnett. How have you been, brother? It's good to see you. It's been a minute.
Yeah, pretty good. Just on a bit of a very long trip around the world, it seems like. But we are coming up to the zenith of this whole thing in a few days with this catch wrestling, snake pit catch wrestling world championships, and it'll be nice to get to that. Not to mention to get to the fun part of getting on the mats and then getting home.
Yeah, because you just left UFC 294. Your protege Victor Henry just got done battling it out. Had a really nasty groin shot. It looked like that kick hit him right underneath the testicle. Is that right? You said it was nasty, swollen.
It was not fun for. Actually, not for me either, because he would never react in such a way, and even despite knowing that that's a foul in general, but when we train and spar in the gym, if he get accidentally eye poked or something like that happens, we keep going. We will not stop because even though we are training essentially for sport fighting. You don't want to be in a situation where your skills are needed in a place where there are no referees and you just got to call it good, because no one's going to go, oh, okay, well, I'm going to give him a break over it. So when I saw him hit the deck like that, I was like, oh, that's no good. This fight's not going to keep going, because he would just grit and work through it. He would never react in such a way. And so that was really difficult to see after, so many months or weeks in general put towards a successful training camp. And to be perfectly honest, we felt going into the second round like, we got this guy. We figured him out. We've sorted him. Now we're really going to start taking over on this fight. And then 15 seconds into the second round, just awful. Luckily, nothing permanent. And we live to fight another day if we happen to walk fairly slowly and cautiously for a while.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Yeah, Victor Henry's a beast, man. Getting the opportunity, when you invited me to your gym a few years back, I was just crazy impressed with Victor's leadership, his tenacity in the training room. I mean, the guy just does not stop. He's got his heart's on fire. The determination's insane. So for his character to be attacked right now, that's super unfortunate. I know his opponent didn't want it to end that way, but to attack the man's character is insane, because Victor's a lion.
Right. None of us did. And it's obvious if you've done your research on him, that kid doesn't quit for nothing. He's never been dropped. He's never been finished. And he's a 30-fight veteran of high-level competition around the world, fighting in Russia, fighting in Japan, Pancrase, Ryzen, Deep. It would really defy all logic for him to all of a sudden out of nowhere in a fight where it's a close fight. Nobody had taken control of that match. I guess the scorecard, somebody got a hold of him, said that it was two judges are scoring it for Basharat on the first round, and one judge scored it for Victor. It was, so the idea that all of a sudden he just completely and utterly became terrified and to the point of wanting to find any way out of a fight that he was never under any real duress, just a normal bout between high level athletes. It just boggles the mind. And then on top of it, it's just the base implication of all their complaints essentially boiled down to, it's like, oh yeah, we're just out of nowhere, we completely broke character in a situation that makes no sense, and now we're all lying about it. It's like, okay, well, we fly halfway around the world to get half a paycheck. It's just stupid.
Yeah, it is asinine, man, and it's super unfortunate. Like I said, he didn't want it to end that way, but to go and attack the character and act like a troll afterwards online, which unfortunately I have some experience doing,
Eh, yeah.
and and you and I. Thankfully, you were awesome and you accepted the apology, but I've apologized to this man behind the scenes, but I'd like to take the opportunity to apologize to you. In recent years, when I decided to go so hard, posting videos, attacking you relentlessly online, acting like a complete douche, to be honest, it was not.
Honestly, because we had met initially at that UCLA event and everybody was copacetic, everybody was good. You and I had never even met before, and you were like pretty jazzed about doing an event, doing a catch wrestling match for the first time in a long time. You're like, yeah, I love this. This is great. Hey, nice to meet you. Nice to meet. And our attitude at the time, me and mine was, yeah, come on down, train, whatever. Like, we hold events too. Like, let's all do it. And then, like, maybe just a couple months go by, then all of a sudden it's like this volume of just like, whoa, what the? And then it was a really strange angle of attack at that. It was, to say, I want a piece of like Travis Newaza at the time, right? That would be like, oh yeah, okay, yeah. But it was like, it was totalizing, and it was like an attempt of entire, like a complete discrediting of like all of our lineage and coaches and everything. You're like, well, this is really weird and specific. And so right from the very beginning, my spidey sense is like, this is not a one-man operation. Somebody had an idea that this was a course of attack for a particular reason. And, because it wouldn't make any sense for a collegiate wrestler to just show up out of nowhere and start going down very particular lines that don't just really serve himself, served other people's maybe greater overarching ideas. And it's funny because this came up a little bit recently. I was having a conversation with someone, and they made mention that one of those particular voices had been bullied in the past. And I'm like, wait a second. If your recollection of how this guy ended up getting such flack and in the end having a lot of disassociation come in his direction, it was not bullying that did it. It was through their own decisions. And it's unfortunate because even to this very day, with people that were very, I don't know, maybe inspired through such methodologies, I still bring athletes to as many competitions as I can, because getting people on the mats is a number one. And, it was, at the end of the day, all of that was really dumb and unfortunate, but it is in the past. And I'd like to think at the very end, getting on the mats and getting even to the point where you're going out to go wrestle in that last like Snake Pit USA event, you're going to defend. It's funny because the lineal aspect of it wasn't really given much consideration, but it's like, okay, so Curran's got this match against this guy, and it's gonna, it's a big single match. And we're going over strategy based on your injury at the time, the opponent, and how to best approach this, protect your weaknesses, and keep it in your strengths. And you went out there and won. So, it all comes back around to getting on the mats and doing all the work on the mats, because if we want this to be something that's viable to more than just a small amount of us, it has to be done on the mats, and it has to be done with, not everybody has to be everybody's best friend or anything like that, but we got to be more in line for the bigger picture than for our own personal glory.
Absolutely. And the biggest thing, there was a little rivalry at the time, but what I did, I took inspiration from individuals who just went from here to there with their trash talking. I took that and I was like, oh, this is how I'm going to jump the line from here to there by going after the greats. But, I feel like a lot of fighters like that nowadays stoop to that level. Like they'll make posts, they'll make complete asses of themselves. And that's the unfortunate thing for me is I have to, I get, posted 5 years ago, posted 4 years ago. And I literally slap my head and I'm like, oh my God, I posted that. I said those things. Like, this is humiliating, embarrassing, like all for what? To cut the line. And at the end of the day, I'm like, what message would you send to fighters like that who may have my thought process, who may look back and be like, why did I do that?
Well, and it was self-defeating at the time because there wasn't really any lines to cut. I mean, those lines were so utterly short. There was nobody really had to go very far. So the reality is that, the honey would be a whole lot better than the poison in terms of getting things together and, shaking themselves out. And, that's really the way it's got to be, because we're not, when we think about catch as just a straight particular style, trying to do its best to develop it on as a standalone thing outside of jiu-jitsu or MMA or something like that. Like it's not big enough for there to even be like a huge amount of like controversy or acrimony towards creating the rivalries, because, man, like everybody's like one match away from really wrestling anyone at any time, because it's just not enough of us. And then the opportunity for those matches to happen, like people just don't have the resources to put the events together. So
Right.
unless we're all going to do it all in a garage, just where there's no money, there's no anything in it yet.
No.
So we've got to do what we could do.
Right. Yeah, definitely. And what's surprising to me though is, I did take a big page from that pro wrestling book, just being loud, being obnoxious, which shocks me that you have never been that way. You've never been one to talk trash or act like a complete fool at press conferences just for the sake of getting numbers. How's that possible when pro wrestling's like so deeply embedded within your DNA?
Well, pro wrestling is it's a thing that has many facets to it, and yet it's not something in which everybody takes the same approach, because like anything else in life, it's made up of a variable amount of personalities and individuals, and of course, if everything was all the same, it really wouldn't have the same allure. You want to see different people with different backgrounds and different approaches, different voices, and even that wrestle differently, have different strengths and weaknesses. We have weight classes. We have all these different things that all help to create a more individual approach towards even the greater entity that is, be it pro wrestling or MMA or catch in this case. And for me also back then, I was like, good, great. We have another collegiate guy involved. We need to keep on this and keep working through this and try to use that as more of a way to exploit, to bring in more people and to try and encourage more MMA, jiu-jitsu, anybody who comes from any sort of high level background to get on the mats. And, I really appreciate everybody that comes out to our tournaments and everybody that competes in catch when they can. And I don't think anybody is going to get too offended by this, but a lot of folks are not from they don't necessarily have a lot of high level international MMA, international wrestling, or, collegiate wrestling experience. And there's not like a ton of jiu-jitsu black belts that are really accomplished getting on in the catch world necessarily. Some of that is because they don't know, to be perfectly honest. And it's important to try and develop that. And it's also good for anyone that doesn't have those accolades to be able to get on the mat and test themselves against those people. And you never
Absolutely.
know, that might be the thing that helps a person shine and get to their next level. And it's quite possible that maybe they started and end up stopping, only going through a catch program, but they actually develop into a great wrestler, even without a collegiate or like a really decorated high school background. And it'll happen because something exists for them to go improve themselves.
Well, that's exactly what you're doing right now. I mean, straight from Abu Dhabi to England, you have gathered an all-star team of catch wrestlers that you are mentoring, coaching to take on Britain's finest here this upcoming weekend. How you feeling about that? And what is something that you give your athletes, like talking to them about preparing them mentally for a battle like this?
Well, unfortunately, we lost one of our top guys. Tony Nelson is not going to be able to make the trip because his daughter injured her wrist just the other day, and so he's not going to be able to get on that plane. But
Dang.
what it does come down to is taking the experience that I've had having so many fights over so many different competition environments and being under that spotlight, especially when the stakes are at their highest, and being able to tap into that from the perspective as the athlete, but also to talk about all of the different elements of what just a person goes through when dealing with the stress of an event, the stress of the pressure, knowing that they need to perform, or knowing that something is expected of them, or their own expectations of themselves, their own potential doubts, all these things that are common across everyone, and then the things about it that are really distinct and specific to athletes, and doing what I can to try and help people get through. Well, okay, it's just like you had that match and you're like, okay, my hand is and I need to, and it's just like, okay, well, let's talk about it. What is hurt about it? Okay, what can we do? What can we do with it? Okay, what can't we do with it? How do we work around it? Your opponent doesn't know this. Well, how do we make sure that they're not aware? Yeah, I mean, they're going to do everything based on expecting you to be as you always are. Okay, well, then it's not necessarily a weakness until they know it. Until they're able to exploit it, it doesn't matter.
Right.
And for you, it's just an adjustment. Maybe you're wrestling somebody that has an opposite stance and you're not used to shooting on that other leg, but you've got more than one move that you could use anyways. Or maybe, it's a matter of making a small adjustment on the day, on the moment. You do round one, you come out and you're like, my knee's a little tweaked, or this next guy, it doesn't give me anything that I like. So it's like, okay, well then how do you then work against that and pull him into something that does work for you? And there's always a puzzle. There's always a problem that has to be worked through for an athlete. And luckily I've had a lot of really great coaches and I've got a lot of experience. So it's really about trying to help them tap into that. And then I guess, by example, because I'm going to wrestle on this thing too.
Yes, you are. Yes, you are. Ladies and gentlemen, you don't want to miss this. It's a world championship in catch wrestling in the Snake Pit, Wigan in England. And this man, you have a show called Bloodsport, which is honestly the most realistic pro wrestling within a predetermined setting that you'd ever want to see. You've got to check that out. But you are also trying to bring back the real catch as catch can wrestling. You're running a national championship tournament in California. Where can our listeners find out about the information and sign up to compete in that in December?
Well, I've been posting it across all my social media on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. And I know that the algorithms are not always kindly to everything we put out there on the world. It'll decide that you need some inane and shallow video instead of maybe information about how to go out there and be an athlete. But nonetheless, it's on there. I have an Eventbrite sign up for it, and it's $40 to register online. And it's this is the culmination of years of work that me and a partner of mine have been putting into this American Catch Wrestling Association project to create a standardized amateur and professional platform for catch as catch can, and this will be like collegiate or international style amateur wrestling. So we have the structure of it is very much like wrestling in the NCAAs or wrestling at the US Open for freestyle or Greco. We use pretty much all the same hand signals. We use pretty much the same calls. The matches look very much in the way they're officiated the same way. We use terms like stalling and passivity, and we call zone on people on the edges of the mats. And we want to make it so that the transition, let's say for an amateur wrestler, is very easy, but also it's the fact that this way of running wrestling events has been done for decades upon decades. And if this is good enough to be the approach that is used at the highest levels of amateur wrestling, why would it not be good enough for this? So, I really want to try and make something that if someone came out of the sky and said, okay, can this be an Olympic sport? We damn right it can. And we're set up for it. We have the officiating, we have the structure, we have the game has been gone through so that we have put all the incentives towards how we think the hierarchy of importance of the game itself is to be played out. And we're ready to go. And it's all very clear and understandable to everyone. But at the same time, just because you can be pinned doesn't mean that means if you're ever anywhere on your back, that it's just like no hope at all. Because plenty of people that have competed with a jiu-jitsu background have been able to do well in it. And it's a place that is a style that's very aggressive and exciting, and really open to anyone. Show up. That's the biggest thing is if you want to be a great grappler, you need to get on the mats. And in the vein of the old catch wrestlers from the early days, they would go anywhere and wrestle anyone. Put a jacket on and wrestle the guy in a jacket round, and then go and do this and then do that, and with chokes, without chokes, it didn't matter. Like there was always a challenge out there, and catch wrestlers were out there to step up to it.
Absolutely. Legends. Yeah, ladies and gentlemen, please support this. Catch wrestling, we're so behind on BJJ only because so many people aren't participating in it. They're not supporting this. And what you created with Jake Shannon over 20 years ago, helping him form his program with scientific wrestling, that changed the entire outcome of my life. That caught up with me, 10 years later when we crossed paths, and because my coach at the time in LA went to one of scientific wrestling seminars, and then he decided to do his own thing. But at the end of the day, man, I'm very thankful for everything that you've done for catch wrestling. With that said, I'm sure that there are a lot of people wanting to book seminar. What's the best way for them if they want to book a seminar or even become one of your students? Social media?
If for seminar bookings, go through, there's a website called Strikers International, and a guy named Dave is my agent for doing all my seminars out of there. And then as far as becoming one of my students, that's really pretty difficult because I really only work with competing, usually pro athletes, because I've only got so much of myself to give around. And when I take somebody on, it's not just about like showing up in the gym. Being a coach is a 24/7 project, and if you're going to develop someone, you develop them all the way. And so everybody that trains under me knows that, even if it's just professional wrestling, because I've got plenty of professional wrestlers that train under me as well. Although sometimes they end up out there on the mats just the same as everybody else. Royce Isaacs competed in the last catch wrestling tournament in California, and he took second in his division. So, You just never know who's going to be on the mats with you. But it's a personal as well as professional relationship, and it's the kind of thing that you never do it because you think you're going to make any like money out of it. It has nothing to do with that. It's you have to want to put that development into someone, but at the same time, I'm training guys out of CMMA alongside Chad George and the California Mixed Martial Arts fight team. All of our athletes are all in the same room, training together, fighting together. And just last weekend, the team went 6-0 at these professional fights and amateur and professional fights at an event called UNF in LA. And we've got a couple guys going to go to Washington and fight in November. And we're constantly putting people out there to go out and compete. And I'm sure a lot of them will be on the mats December 17th for this Catch Wrestling US Open as well.
We're going to be posting all that information in the link. Check out the link below. Brother, I appreciate you giving us your time, especially with the caricature that I created years ago and you inviting me out to train with me. And I got to tell you, getting in that cage with you, I was like, oh no, he's going to give it to me good. and you never did, man. You were a gentleman. You treated me with so much respect, and as someone who really loves catch wrestling, it wouldn't be where it's at without you. And I just have to thank you for that. And best of luck to you and your men going to war in England this weekend.
Oh, thank you. And I'm sure that the Snake Bit over here will put those matches up on YouTube at some point. And with the ACWA, we're going to do this U.S. Open, but we're going to be striving to continue to put on multiple events a year, which means, if you're looking to get back on the mat and do a pro match, we'll try and make that happen. On this card, we're going to have Eric Hammer versus Dave Waters and a pro match. And I'm waiting on confirmation, but hopefully we'll have Nick Kajia again versus another opponent, because that guy, he just wants to get out there and wrestle as much as possible.
He does.
And, so we're trying to do something for everyone, as well as, doing things like the big open amateur tournament side of things as well. And we've had as many as 60 plus competitors show up on a tournament day, men and women both. And it's all about, developing and trying to create places for people to wrestle. I know, you've got the matches that you've got, but you've still got time that you can get out there and wrestle, and not just you, but other people. And if the events exist, then people can go and compete. And that's what's important.
Well, you heard it from the man himself, ladies and gentlemen. This is the revival of catch as catch can wrestling, and the Warmaster here is one of the best catch wrestlers to ever do it. Support him on this journey. Help bring back this great style, this phenomenal sport. I'll post the event right in this link. Click on that, check it out, sign up to compete, watch it, spread the word. That's what we need in order to make catch great again. For those of you at home, thanks for tuning in, and we will see you on the next one.